Hello, this is episode 28 of the Movie Burner podcast, the weekly podcast from Movie Burner Entertainment, where we discuss the latest entertainment news, reviews and share our views. So what's up first, John?
First up, Stephen, the new Birds of Prey movie has found a director. It's a director that no one seems to know of. I certainly don't know anything about her. I'm sure you on Leighton as all know.
Yes, the name is Cathy Yan, John, and anyone out there who knows the independent film Dead Pigs will know exactly who she is. I have got no clue who she is, but apparently it won the World Cinema Dramatic Award for Ensemble Acting at the Sundance this year. According to Deadline, Cathy Yan beat out many well-established male directors to land the gig. Apparently she gave an excellent presentation for Birds of Prey, and the fact that Margot Robbie insisted that this film have a female director probably helped too. The script is for Birds of Prey movie is also written by a woman, Christina Hodson, who was just hired to write the Batgirl movie.
Yes, thanks for enlightening us all, Stephen, because I certainly, as I said, had no clue who this woman was prior to this announcement. In fact, I'll go one further, I had no clue about this Birds of Prey film prior to this announcement. You enlightened me on that as well, Stephen, a couple of days ago. Yeah, I mean, it's great for her. I think she's the first female Asian director to be given a gig with DC in a comic book film, so that's great news for her. In terms of the film, I don't really know whether it's great news for the film because, as I said, I don't know the lady, I don't know this Dead Pigs film, although the premise behind it is actually quite interesting, where it's like I believe it's a swarm of pig carcasses slowly makes its way towards a major city in China, and the authorities are kind of working out a plan on how to deal with this. I've not seen the film, but the premise is interesting. Certainly she must have some ability as a writer and director to have been given the nod ahead of all these established other directors that were up for the role. As you say, I believe some prominent male directors put their name forward. But yeah, it's clearly something that Margot Robbie herself's been pushing for. They want this to be an ensemble female sort of a cast, crew, and so on. I think they've got Christina Hodson on board doing the writing, although that's not confirmed yet. I believe there's been news that there's potentially 2 different scripts for this film. We don't know which one's been chosen as the final one for the film going forward. Christina Hodson, though, has apparently written one of them, so it's tying in. We've got obviously Margot Robbie. It's the premise of the story is a female group of superheroes, superheroines, and now we've got female directors. So yeah, I mean, I'm on board with this one, Stephen. It kind of goes back to what we were speaking about maybe about a month back, Stephen, when we were discussing Creed 2 and the change of director. Michael B. Jordan was pushing for a young black director to come on board because obviously he knows that culture and the lifestyle and stuff better than anybody, and he'll be able to connect with the character better. It's the same here. If you get a female director, she'll know how to get the best out of female performers, and she'll know what these characters, what motivates them, what drives them. So I'm not no issue with this.
Yeah, the Birds of Prey lineup usually consists of the following characters: John Black Canary, Batgirl and Huntress. Not sure how Harley Quinn will slot into this film, whether it will be 50% Birds of Prey, 50% Harley Quinn. Certainly she was one of the positives that came out of the Suicide Squad film, which was very underwhelming. Certainly upstaged Jared Leto's Joker. But there's been talk for a good while now, John, at least the last year or so, of how they're going to fit this character and Margot Robbie's portrayal into another film. You know, as I just mentioned, there was talk about a Gotham City Sirens film. There's also talk about some kind of Joker Harley Quinn film as well, teaming up, whatever, how that would have played out, I don't know. This seems to be probably the most sensible way of doing it. But as I said, whether or not Harley Quinn will be part of the Birds of Prey and move away from the sort of traditional storylines of the comics, who knows?
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting because, as you know, I'm not a big comic book reader, so I'm not armed with too much authority on these sort of things, but I did read in an article that she gets on board with Batgirl. I think they're the 2 primary ones alongside Huntress, as you said, after she gets shot, I believe, and that kind of turns her. She ends up in a wheelchair or something like that. I'm not too sure if that's 100% accurate, but I digress. She joins the Birds of Prey apparently in the comics after she falls out of favour with the Joker. So that'd be interesting if they are going to go down the road of doing a film with Jared Leto and Margot Robbie in the future. If they go into this Birds of Prey, they're going to do a 90-degree turn away from the comic book stories and go in a completely different direction. Or is this going to somehow, we're going to have a time jump to the Joker, we're going to jump back in time to the Joker Harley Quinn film. Who knows, Stephen? I don't know, but it's interesting.
Well, it's interesting you do say that, John, because if you've watched The Killing Joke, there's actually that sequence in the movie where the Joker shoots Batgirl at point blank range, and that could tie in because she does, obviously she's paralysed from the shooting, and I never thought about it that way, I've got to be honest. I never thought about the sort of relationship between Harley Quinn and the Joker after that, if there is some kind of attachment or relationship between Harley Quinn and Batgirl. I think that this Birds of Prey movie will probably start shooting maybe late this year or early next year, because she is obviously tied into the next Quentin Tarantino film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where she's looks like she's going to be portraying Sharon Tate. So I think after that's done, I think that's when they'll start filming Birds of Prey.
Yeah, and it's just the effect this is going to have on a potential Suicide Squad 2 as well. How is this going to impact that? I think it's going to get the old switcheroo now. Suicide Squad's going to get back maybe a year in terms of production, because as you say, she's doing the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Now she's doing the Birds of Prey film. So that's a shame that it's impacting that, because although Suicide Squad wasn't a perfect film by any means, I did get some enjoyment out of her character and the way she played off the rest of the members of the Suicide Squad, most notably Deadshot, also played by Will Smith. So that's a shame in a way. I've also read an interesting article about how maybe they should just combine this with the Gotham City Sirens film, because also it's a similar kind of a concept. It's a strong female group of superheroines, so it was kind of a similar to what we were discussing previously with Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor character and the different direction they could go with that, the Legion of Doom and the other name, which fails me at the moment. So it's a similar setup. I don't think we're going to see that Gotham City Sirens now. I think this will probably take its place. But just touching on the cast and the crew, I see that Margot Robbie's production company is actually going to be involved in this again. I know she produced I, Tonya. I enjoyed that film, so that's great to see. It'll be very, very interesting if they do pick this Christina Hodson script. She's going to have a big say on quite a sizable chunk of the DCEU going forward. Also, you've got the Batgirl movie coming, and now this, she's potentially writing this. I know she wrote the Transformers spin-off Bumblebee. I've not seen that. She must be quite talented if she's getting a nod for these two films from Warner Brothers. Just touching on the casting as well, Stephen, I did read another article. I've been reading a lot of articles, clearly, about this film. One from Screen Rant, I believe, actually speculated on who they could cast in the various different roles, because it says that there's been a whole host of different characters popped up in this Birds of Prey group. As you touched upon earlier, Black Canary, who was obviously an Arrow, very interesting character. Barbara Gordon, obviously Batgirl, Harley Quinn, but they did mention that Huntress and Poison Ivy and a couple of others popped up in it from time to time, so it'd be interesting to see if they do stay faithful to the comic book stories, or whether they go off in a different direction and maybe introduce a different ensemble of characters, and who they get into cast. They were suggesting maybe Sophia Boutella and stuff like that coming in. Certainly that's something I actually think Warner Brothers have done a good job of in the DCU over the years. You can slaughter the films and maybe the stories and the CGI and stuff, but I think in the main they've got the casting pretty bang on. Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, that's perfect. Henry Cavill was Superman. I says before, and I stand by this, he's still my favourite Superman to date. Ben Affleck as Batman, thought that was a bang on casting. I think he's been fantastic as Bruce Wayne. Jason Momoa as Aquaman, another great casting. Ezra Miller, brilliant actor as Flash. So I've got confidence in them picking the right people. It's just whether the script and the direction's going to be there. By all accounts, Christina Holden's potentially writing this film, so I've got confidence in the script. Don't know anything about this young lady coming in to direct, but she must have something if she's getting the nod, so it looks interesting for me, Stephen. I can't wait to see Margot Robbie coming back as this character. Just iconic performance from her. She certainly did make Suicide Squad a watchable film for me, amidst some horrendous other parts of it, like the villain, played by Cara Delevingne, I think her name is. That was just the most unforgettable villain alongside the Justice League film, so yeah.
Personally, I think this is the way that DC should go, John. I think, they've got this area of characters at their disposal. Yeah. Do I want to see a Man of Steel 2? Yes. Do I want to see the Batman film? Yes. Do I want to see another Suicide Squad film? Not really. I don't think there's any need for another Suicide Squad film, whether that's just talk or not. We've been introduced to those characters. They can all go off and do their own thing now. They can appear in Batman film. They can appear in the next Wonder Woman film. The choices are there. I'm very interested in this though, the Birds of Prey film. I think this will open up a lot of opportunities for more female directors. Patty Jenkins hit the nail on the head with Wonder Woman, and Cathy Yan, who, you know, we admittedly don't know much about, but certainly I think the key to this is Christina Hodson writing the script. But, you know, it's all these other characters we know about. As you mentioned, John, Black Canary, I thought that was one of the more prominent characters in the Arrow television series. I thoroughly enjoyed the portrayal of the character as well. And it's just those little things that, you know, they've all these characters at their disposal, and it's time to start using them. Let's not regurgitate the Suicide Squad film. It didn't reach the expectations of the fans of the DC universe. Just move on from it. Don't make a sequel. Just don't think they have to go there. They introduced these characters similar to they did with the Batman v Superman. They did it well with Wonder Woman, introducing her in that film. And I think they should just plough ahead and just do their thing.
Yeah, and one final thing I'm going to touch on, Stephen, in this is an interesting marker scene where they says if Christina Hodson is to pen the script for this film, then it would be along a similar vein to what they did with Black Panther in Civil War before introducing him into the wider universe with his own film. So that would be a great idea. And I just can't wait to see how they go along doing this. I want to see the DCEU getting its act together and really improving and going on.
Yeah, just moving on, John, and staying on the DC comic topic here, it's something that's dropped last week was Steven Spielberg is going to be tackling a DC comic movie called Blackhawk. This is according to The Hollywood Reporter.
Yeah, Stephen, this is, again, very interesting news. I think interesting is my most overused word in these podcasts. But it is interesting. Steven Spielberg finally taking on a superhero movie. Who would have thought that would have happened? We were just discussing before we came on, Stephen, that this is kind of it's an interesting one because although it is a comic book film and it is a superhero film, there's more to it than that. The Blackhawk character is more like a pilot. He's not got like superhuman abilities. He's a great pilot. And the setting's like World War II, and we all know that Steven Spielberg loves World War II. And getting back to it, he's also worked with Tom Hanks numerous times over the years in the Pacific, Band of Brothers, Saving Private Ryan. So this is a guy that loves war films. He loves that period. So with this being set in that, I think it's just a coincidence that it's a superhero film. He's obviously gotten the script. I don't know whether he's writing the script, who's writing the script, but he's obviously seen it and it's intrigued him, the setting, and I think it's just a coincidence, but it's great to see a guy of this calibre coming in and doing a comic book film.
I think Steven Spielberg is one of the greatest filmmakers of all time anyway, John. But he's certainly not one of the directors that I would think off the top of my head to do a comic book film. I put him in the same bracket as the Francis Ford Coppola's, John Carpenter's, the Martin Scorsese's of the world. You know, and that's not decrying the Russo brothers, etc., who are so good at doing comic book films. So when I saw this drop, I was very surprised. I never thought in a million years Steven Spielberg would want to touch the genre. But as you say, that sort of period in time seems to be of great interest to Steven Spielberg. As you said, he's made so many great television productions and film productions in this period. I like the period as well, especially in the comic book genre. This era always intrigued me, from the likes of The Rocketeer, the first Captain America film, and when I say the first one, I don't mean the one from 1990. I'm talking about the one, you know, they made just a few years ago, the first Avenger. That one, it's just a period of time I enjoy. Even the Wonder Woman film, I liked those elements to it. So it's certainly something that really intrigues me, this. I know that, you know, in certain social media platforms, a lot of people are saying he's a hypocrite for taking on this. Not really looked or delved too much into that, John. Why Steven Spielberg is a hypocrite going into this. He's so connected to the big blockbuster films of the last 30 years, probably beyond that. And for him to be connected to any comic book movie, I certainly didn't think it would be, you know, this character of Blackhawk, which I don't know anything about. I've put my hands up. I do not know anything about this character, but I'm certainly surprised that this is, you know, this is the one that he's taken on board.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of that is down to the period setting, Stephen, but I've actually discovered who's writing the film. It's David Cope, who of course has collaborated with Spielberg as a screenwriter on all of these blockbusters, really. Jurassic Park, The Lost World, Jurassic Park, War of Worlds, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. He's been involved in a whole host of films with Stephen, so that's clearly been a big attraction to him. Whether he's worked in conjunction with him, I don't know. certainly producers as well are interesting. There's a little connection back to what we were discussing earlier with the Birds of Prey film. Sue Crowell's an executive producer on this film. She's actually producing Birds of Prey as well. And then you've also got Christy McCaskill Krieger, who has been an assistant and worked with Spielberg since all the way back in 1998. She's worked with him and produced films like Bridge of Spies, The Post, Ready Player One. So he's assembling a very talented group of people here to get involved with this film. His screenwriter's he's a brilliant screenwriter. He's a fantastic director. You've got brilliant producers on board. So all the indicators are that this is going to be a very, very good film. And if this is interconnected with the DCEU, then that's very interesting as well. I don't know if it is or not, but it's, yeah,
there is only one way this can connect. Now, it was something that just popped into my head as well when you said that, John, was that possibly this will be separate, very much like the rumour that's going about Joaquin Phoenix taking on this Joker standalone film. That's not to say that this is going to be a standalone film. This could be part of the DCEU, and the way they could tie this in is obviously the character of Wonder Woman. You know, it would have to be obviously a prequel or some kind to her character anyway, to feature in the 1940s. Mm-hmm. Who knows? But it's just interesting to look up where this character came from. Apparently the series debuted in 1941's Military Comics. It was published originally by Quality Comics before DC acquired the property in 1956. Mm-hmm. And it was co-created by comic book legend Walt Eisner along with Bob Powell and Chuck Kudera. The comic was one of the biggest sellers in the 1940s, so it's certainly this seems like a passion project for Steven Spielberg. He certainly is very familiar with the character and the comic book stories. Yeah,
and interestingly, it actually first popped up out with the comic medium in a 1950s radio show, so that's very cool. And just the character and the whole premise of the comics, it's quite cool actually. You've got basically a group of pilots, I believe it is. I'm not too sure whether they're all pilots. I think they are, because it goes on to say they're the finest pilots ever to take the skies in the DC universe. So you've got all these different chaps. You've got Stanislaus, who's an acrobatic and a strongman. Chuck, communications expert. Hendrickson's a gifted marksman and sharpshooter. You've got Chop Chop, and then Lady Blackhawk, who's a talented mechanic. So it's kind of a similar vein to Birds of Prey, really, but obviously it's not all female, and it's a completely different setting, so it's not similar at all. I'm tripping here, but you know what I mean? It's a group, sort of a comic book setting, where you've got these group of people coming together and also taking on the enemy in World War II. But yeah, I mean, I find it so interesting. Obviously, Spielberg's worked with Warner Brothers with Ready Player One as well, so they've also seen the success that film's been. I think it's grossed nearly $500 million worldwide now. I think it was actually the chairman, Toby Emmerich, who came out and says he was delighted to welcome him back into Warner Brothers to do this film. So all the indicators, as I said, point to this being very, very exciting film. I've not heard of the character, but to be honest with you, Stephen, I hadn't heard of Captain America or Iron Man prior to those films. I'm not a massive comic book reader. I need to change that and quick, because we've got these great films coming out based on all these different characters, and if you're armed with the background knowledge, then it adds another layer to the experience of going and seeing these films, seeing what they've changed, what they've not changed, what they're tying in, what they aren't tying in. But yeah, I'm excited for this. I can't wait to get more news for it. It's all fairly fresh, the breaking of this news. I know we've got the director, but it's clearly been something that's been in the planning stages for a while. If you've got a script from Coip, all these producers coming on board. But yeah, I'm tripping on, I'm gibbering on here, Stephen.
Yeah, Spielberg just doesn't slow down, does he?
No, he doesn't.
You know, just in the back of last year with The Post, and then obviously Ready Player One, which just came out last month. He's still on track, obviously, to make Indiana Jones 5, and is also developing the remake of West Side Story, which I don't think he's even got the leads for the casting of that yet. So he's certainly a busy boy. You know, that just adds more to the surprise of him taking on this project. But as I said, you know, he likes to keep himself busy, and I look forward to seeing this movie.
Yeah, I was actually just going to touch upon that, Stephen. If it is going to come, it's going to be a couple of years down the road anyway, because he is very, very busy. But you know, he does like cram multiple films into one calendar year. He's done it numerous times. Also this year with The Post and Ready Player One, and numerous times in the past. But moving on, Stephen, to the next part of the show, which we basically just called the Movie Burner Blog Rundown, where we discussed the previous 7 reviews of the last week. What have we got first, Stephen?
First up, John, is 2015's MI5, starring Kit Harington, Peter Firth and Jennifer L. Basically, the plot is when a terrorist escapes custody during a routine handover, Will Holloway must team up with disgraced MI5 intelligence chief Harry Pierce to track him down before an imminent terrorist attack on London.
Yes, and interestingly, Stephen, this film is going by a different name over here. It's called Spooks the Greater Good over here, which is a bit naff, but I suppose it stops that confusion over it possibly being a Mission Impossible film. People will be saying, where the hell's Tom Cruise? And they get Kit Harington instead. I'm a fan of Kit Harington. He's obviously Jon Snow from Game of Thrones. I've not seen this film, Stephen, I can't lie, but I suppose the plot sounds interesting enough. It kind of reminds me of Bastille Day that I watched last year. Similar concept where you've got intelligence chief trying to track people down before the terrorist attacks and stuff like that. So, I mean, the concept looks interesting. It's only an hour and 44 minutes long. It's not the longest film. Probably just for Kit Harington's appearance alone, I probably would give it a bash.
Yeah, Darren did say that he enjoyed this film. He does enjoy a British spy movie, and just adding into Peter Firth appearing in this just adds weight to that. He does say that the quality of the film, though, is more of a TV movie quality. That's kind of off-putting to me.
Yeah, Stephen, and moving on to the next one, we have Flatliners from last year. Of course, it's a remake of the great film, obviously from 1990, starring the fantastic Kevin Bacon, who we all love. We've done a profile on him. But this film doesn't have Kevin Bacon, Stephen. It has Ellen Page, Diego Luna, and Nina Dobrev. It's basically about 5 medical students obsessed with what lies beyond the confines of life, embarking on a daring experiment by stopping their hearts for short periods, each triggering a near-death experience and giving them a first-hand account of the afterlife. I've seen this film, Stephen. I wasn't hugely impressed with it, I've got to be honest with you. It was a big disappointment, but we've discussed this previously, and doing these reboots of better films that were released maybe 10, 15, 20 years earlier doesn't tend to work out. We discussed that with Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and it's certainly the case here. It was a bit naff. Ellen Page was okay. Diego Luna, it's always good to see Diego. I loved his performance in Rogue One, so it wasn't horrendous by any means, but it wasn't very good either.
Yeah, I've not seen this film, John. I certainly saw the original movie back in the day. You know, it was a fantastic film. I've heard mixed reviews about this one. Certainly, you know, the concept of this film, it's it is a total remake of the original, but it did remind me of a film I did watch last year starring Jason Segel. This was a film called The Discovery, and basically, you know, it was investigating the afterlife through science. I thought The Discovery was a great film, certainly better from what I've read from this remake.
Yeah, because it's a totally original concept, Stephen. It's not rebooting a much better film with far better star power. But moving on, Stephen, to the next review, and it's one you actually done on talking about classic films, a classic film, Frequency, directed by Gregory Hoblet, written by Toby Emmerich, who we were just discussing, Stephen, and then obviously starring Dennis Quaid, Jim Caviezel, Sean Doyle and Elizabeth Mitchell. The plot is about a man in his middle-aged years communicating with his father through space and time, through a radio. It sounds far-fetched and complicated, but it really isn't. It's a fantastic film.
Yeah, I mean, the concept of the film, as you said, John, is very basic. Basically, what they do is they use this effect. It's very similar to the Northern Lights to really explain the science. And basically, it's a ham radio that Jim Caviezel, who plays his son, communicates with his dead father, who's been dead for 30 years. He's in 1969, and Caviezel's character John Sullivan is in 1999, and basically he warns him about this fire. His father was a firefighter and was killed in a warehouse fire, and it really unfurls from there. Really starts changing the past and the effect it has on his life and the lives around him, and it's a better version of the Butterfly Effect film, which, you know, in my opinion, is it's a better developed film. It doesn't really rely too much on science fiction. It is more drama based, and it's a great film. I first saw this film, I think, in 2001. I think it was out about a year before it came out on DVD. I didn't see any cinematic release for this, but it was one of those films I thoroughly enjoyed back then. I have revisited, that's why it's in the blog this week. I saw it on, I think it might have been on Sky Movies or something like that. Sat down and watched it, forgot how good it was. And it's a thoroughly enjoyable film.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Stephen, about rewatchability. I went back and watched this film many a time. Fantastic film. And Dennis Quaid's a great actor. Moving on to the next one, though, we have Amityville: The Awakening from last year, directed by Frank Calhoun. It stars Jennifer Jason Leigh, Bella Thorne, and McKenna Grace. And the plot is about a desperate single mother who moves with her 3 children into the notorious, supposedly haunted, real-life Amityville house to try and use its dark powers to cure her comatose son. Things go horribly wrong. I believe I watched this film, and it wasn't very good, Stephen. I don't scare very easily, as I've said numerous times, and this is a bad version of a horror film.
Yeah, it's a shame. One of the first horror films I ever saw was the Amityville Horror. This was the one starring Margot Kidder and James Brolin. Terrifying film. I think the fact that what terrified me the most was it was based on true events.
Yeah.
I saw the remake, the one with Ryan. I think it was Ryan Reynolds that was in the remake, and basically it was pretty naff. I probably have to go back and watch it again, but I just remember having this feeling of, when they do remakes of horror films, sometimes they just don't work. Certainly reminded me of the Rob Zombie Halloween films. They just didn't have that same feel or tone to them. I've not seen this incarnation, the Awakening film that came out last year. Darren's a big horror fan, but he's rating this one 2 out of 10. He said that it's just a bad horror film, a film that tried to save itself by being part of an almost forgotten franchise. Listen, if you want to go and see an Amityville horror film, watch the original.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that summary from Darren, because it's certainly the same opinion that I had after I seen this film. And I agree with you, Stephen, the original Amityville film is probably the best. The story itself is very intriguing. I've always been interested in it. I always remember that strange photo of the little ghost boy peering out from behind the door. Very, very odd. But moving on to the next one, it's Demonic from 2015, directed by Will Cannon, starring Maria Bello, Frank Grillo and Cody Horn. It's about a police officer and a psychologist investigating the deaths of 5 people who were killed whilst trying to summon ghosts. Yeah,
Darren says this is a very boring horror film with no scares and sadly wasted 2 good actors in Frank Grillo and Maria Bello. Sadly, a horror film, if it has no scares, is not a horror film in my book, but it's certainly one that I don't think I will go out my road to watch, John.
Yeah, I remember Frank Grillo from Warrior, and I've not got much more to say about this. Sometimes the best films to review though are the worst ones. Certainly the most enjoyment I've got out of reviewing films in the past is Phoenix Forgotten and Allied. Both films I absolutely hated. I battered the reviews very quick time. But moving on swiftly, Stephen, to the next film, and I believe it's one that you reviewed, and it's Batman, The Killing Joke from last year, I believe, or 2016.
Yeah, John, I actually downloaded this before I went on holiday a couple of years ago. Certainly enjoyed the film back then. Since then, it's came on Sky Movies over the last few weeks, and I thought I'd revisit it. My opinion's not changed on it. I know a lot of the die-hard fans of the graphic novel were very unsatisfied with this version of the story. One thing that did stand out to me was, for a film that is 72 minutes long, the first 30 minutes of the film is basically explaining the relationship between Batgirl and Batman. You don't even see the Joker for the first half hour, which was... I remember watching that for the first time and being quite disappointed with that. Once the Joker is in play, the film really does pick up. I certainly love the little flashbacks we get from his early life. It's something that I've never seen in the character. I've never seen any backstory or how he became the Joker. This certainly explained a lot in this version of the Mad Clown. You've got Kevin Conroy there playing Batman. You've got Mark Hamill playing the Joker. What's not to like? It's not a bad movie. It says this in the review. It does have its flaws, but I do recommend giving it a watch.
Yeah, I've loved Mark Hamill's portrayal of the Joker for many years now. I loved him in the Arkham Asylum games, and obviously Kevin Conroy's played the Batman character for just as long as Mark Hamill. Those two are great friends. And this does look like a very interesting film, Steve. I've not seen this one. The visuals look cool though, the cartoon visuals, I believe they are. As you say, if it gives an insight into the Joker's background, then I'm all for that, because I actually mentioned that a couple of weeks ago. That's something we don't get to see. I'd be very intrigued. I think it was when we were discussing Lex Luthor, into seeing that. But moving on to the final film of this week's Movie Burner blog, and it's Game Over Man, released this year. It's directed by Kyle Newacek, and it stars Adam Devine, Anders Holm and Blake Anderson, and the plot is basically about three friends on the verge of getting their video game financed when their benefactor is taken hostage by terrorists.
Yeah, Darren says that this film is badly done and is overtly not funny. Funnily enough, this was one of the films that I did happen to check out on Netflix. I didn't go as far as hitting the play button, but it's certainly one that I don't think I'll be reviewing anytime soon. Thanks, Darren, for that. But he goes on to say, this film goes beyond Adam Sandler gross comedy bad. But yeah, I think that's a wee bit harsh on Adam there, Darren. But no, it's one of those ones that just kind of stood out on Netflix, and I thought I'd give it a bash. But the plot about these three friends on the verge of developing a video game or being financed or something like that. The plot sounds quite funny. It's obviously just been badly written and badly executed. I'm certainly not familiar with the cast or the director for that matter, so I think I'll be giving this one a buy, John.
Yeah, Stephen, is this actually a Netflix original film? I'm not too sure if it is, but it kind of ties into what I says in my Annihilation review a couple of week ago, where I says it's kind of a hit and miss, and there was a little voice in my head when I watched it and realised it was getting distributed on Netflix. It was kind of saying to me, this may be potentially quite crap, but it turned out to be a brilliant film. But that kind of ties into what I was saying, but it's slightly hit and miss with Netflix. But that just rounds up this week's iteration of the Movie Burner blog rundown, where we discuss the previous 7 reviews for the week. And we're now moving on to the final movie topic of this week's show, which is James Wan explaining the reason behind the Aquaman reshoots.
Yeah, it seems to be a common trend at the moment, John. When anyone mentions the word reshoots, everyone panics. In this case, it's not so much a reshoot. I think a lot of the panic in this story is that there's been a added character, or so a lot of the fans think. As you say, James Wan went as far as going on Twitter to explain the position of the film. The actual character that's been introduced was always going to be in the film, as far as I read the report, John. Wan explains that these weren't reshoots, they were pick-up shots, which is clearly a different thing from reshoots. But it seems to be a common trend that if films aren't made perfectly these days and are not made on schedule and on budget, everyone starts to panic. Now, we've already saw reshoots in the Justice League. Okay, I don't think the reshoots were anything to do with the disappointment it was the Justice League, but we've seen it resurrect films. Tony Gilroy's story from a few weeks ago, John, and in regards to Rogue One, kind of sums it up. Sometimes films need to be rescued. We're going to see that hopefully in Solo, the Star Wars film, and I don't think it's to the same extent for Aquaman. As far as all reports that I've been reading, Aquaman is one of these films that the DC fans are going to be looking forward to. There doesn't seem to be a lot of news coming out of it, which is not a bad thing. Very similar to Rian Johnson going about his business with The Last Jedi. Everything on schedule. And these reshoots, or pickups as they're called, is just part and parcel of filmmaking these days.
Yeah, I mean, he even says in the post that he made on Twitter that so happy and fortunate to finally be working with this man on pickups. I don't think you can spell it out anymore. It's pretty clear. It's just pickups. There's not anything major getting reworked in this film. And this Dr. Shin character is very interesting. Apparently he was quite a major supporting character in the Aquaman comics. He was kind of a mentor and friend to Arthur in the comics, and then I think he kind of betrays him later on or something like that. So looks like he's quite a prominent character, and if this is going to be like a sort of origin story for Aquaman in the DCEU, then this character would have had to have been in there if he's got such a big part in the comics. So I can quite believe James Wan when he says that this chap was going to be in from day one and it's not something they've added in with the reshoots. I'm not concerned about the reshoots. As you says, they're very prominent these days. You they pop up in just about every film, although not The Last Jedi. Although some would say they should have reshot that to add in and change some things like Luke not dying. So I'm not concerned about this at all. Reshoots are a necessary part of filmmaking. You can't make a perfect film in one go all the time. Sometimes you need to go in and do little changes and pick up shots and stuff like that. So that's all good. In terms of the trailers and not seeing anything about the film, I'm not concerned about that either. It's not out until December. There's plenty of time to get a trailer out there. And certainly James Wan's came out and explained why we haven't seen a trailer yet. He says he's simply not ready to share it. The movie's filled to the gills with VFX, and the process is as slow and laborious as a sea slug. Yes, even shots for the trailers take forever to do, and I refuse to put out anything that might be considered as subpar. So that's very nice to see. Obviously, with the criticisms of the recently released Justice League and them rushing it out and making an absolute mess of the CGI in that film, CGI moustaches in and stuff like that. It's nice to see that they're taking their time on this one, making sure everything looks 100% and shined up and polished before they release even a trailer. And I do recall him mentioning maybe about 5, 6, 7 months ago just how difficult it was shooting this film with all the water scenes and stuff like that, how it was quite a difficult task. So yeah, I'm not concerned about there not being a trailer. I'm just looking forward to seeing this film. It's very, very intriguing to me. Loved Jason Momoa in Justice League. I thought he was the best thing in that film by a country mile. The Aquaman character's just great. He's a great chap on and off the screen. Brilliant actor. Very extroverted, bubbly guy. And I can't wait to see this film. I really can't. I hope it kickstarts the renaissance of the DCEU.
I don't think James Wan could make it any clearer, John, that these are additional photography shots. But just going back on, what we were talking about in reshoots, sometimes it's necessary, sometimes it does work. You've just got to look at all the money in the world when they recasted the whole character, and those reshoots certainly paid off in that film for Ridley Scott. But listen, I'm on board with this film anyway, John. I certainly can't wait to see Aquaman coming out this December. As you said, this was the standout performance in the Justice League, as far as I was concerned anyway. Jason Momoa, I've just saw him recently in the film Braven. It was one of those run-of-the-mill action films, but because he was in it, he made the film actually watchable. He's just got an amazing personality, very entertaining to watch off-screen in chat shows, etc. And I just feel Wan didn't really have to come out and say anything about these rumours about reshoots coming out. I think he's right not releasing any trailers until he's happy when it's ready, and it'll come out when it comes out. We've got a long way to go till December anyway. I think probably we'll start getting a teaser trailer over the summer, and then the full trailer possibly around about October time.
Yeah, and I think they're actually starting early promotional work for the film as well. I think James Wan and Jason Momoa were on a private jet a few days back, so certainly we're going to start getting little tidbits and bits of promotion coming out, maybe posters and stuff like that and artwork. And yeah, as I said, I just can't wait to see this film. From what I've seen of it, shots, leaked shots of the set and stuff like that, and characters, looks amazing. Looks like they've got just about every major player in the Aquaman sort of a comics coming in here. And it's sure to be a very interesting and enjoyable film. I'm sure they'll get it right. Finally, DC. I say finally, I love Man of Steel. I'm being a little bit harsh there. Love Man of Steel, and I loved Batman v Superman despite its flaws, and obviously Wonder Woman as well, which was one of my favourite superhero films from last year. So I can't wait to see DC bouncing back and moving forward. It seems to be a mantra I'm repeating throughout the day. We've been discussing a lot of DC films today, in actual fact, when I think about it. That's 3 topics. But that just rounds up that topic, Stephen, and we're moving on to box office chat.
Yeah, this is for weekend of April 13th to 15th, John, and coming in at number 1 this week, earning 4.1 million over the weekend, clearly grossing 4.1 million in its first week, is Rampage.
Yes, I don't know what to make of this film, Stephen, because I've not seen it. I probably will get round to seeing it because it's got Dwayne Johnson in it, and just the concept of the film looks interesting to me. It's based on a video game. I want to see a good video game film coming out finally. I know you played it back in the day. I never had the opportunity to play this game. I did watch his last over-the-top, unbelievable action film, San Andreas, where you just went in and just took it for what it was. Had a little laugh at certain bits, and and this looks like it's going along a similar vein. Certainly, it seems to be doing better in Europe and China and places like that than it is in the United States.
Well, we were talking about The Rock last week, John, and I did happen to mention that it was getting mixed reviews. That was based on US critics who they weren't panning the film; they were just saying it was, pretty average. As we know, Dwayne Johnson's got about 200 films in production at the moment.
Yeah,
he's such a busy man at the moment. This is a film, I think, that's been judged because of its genre, because it came from the arcade game, which was made famous in the late 80s. Certainly did enjoy the game, John. I know you didn't have the pleasure of playing it, but it was certainly one of those games that was very enjoyable, very entertaining. But this film is certainly getting better feedback in Europe. I think it's scoring just over average here in the UK at the moment, certainly on IMDb. And it's certainly one of those ones, I think, that you'll mostly enjoy in the cinema. I think, for its visuals and for, just the chaos and carnage that comes with these type of films, I think it's better seeing these films in the cinema.
Yeah, and in China it's sitting at number 1. It's grossed $105 million over there, so it's tearing it up over there. But moving on to number 2, we have Peter Rabbit. It's grossed $2 million for the weekend, taking its total gross to £37.5 million in just 5 weeks. It's still showing 1,020 theatres. I enjoyed this film when I went to see it, and I'm pleased to see it's doing very well. It deserves to earn the money it's earned. It's a very enjoyable animated film with a couple of great performances from James Corden and Domhnall Gleeson, as I've mentioned before. Yeah, I don't know what much more to add, Stephen. It was an enjoyable film and it's doing very, very well.
Yeah, in its 5th week, John, it's still sitting at number 2. I think that's very impressive. I think this film's intentions were obviously for an Easter release for the kids being off on holiday. It certainly surpassed that, and earning another £2 million over the weekend is very impressive. Just moving on now to number 3 in our box office chat. It's the Emily Blunt film. We were talking about this last week, A Quiet Place. You certainly did a written review on this and an audio review this week on this movie. You can check that out on our website. But it's in its 2nd week on the box office here in the UK, earning 1.9 million over the weekend and 6.8 million overall.
Yes, I enjoyed this film, Stephen. It was very, very good. It was a horror film, and it was a very good horror film. It was, I think I says in my review, it was probably the best horror film I've seen in a number of years. They took a very interesting concept with the silence and a well-trodden one with the monster premise in an isolated house, and they made magic with it. Some great performances in there, most notably from John Krasinski, Emily Blunt and Millicent Simmons. Brilliant, brilliant film. Can't recommend it enough, and I'm glad to see that it's grossing what it's grossed. It's grossed 6.8 million to date in 2 weeks. This film's just been a bit of a sensation all over the place. I think it's took many people by surprise, and it's because they're shaking up the horror genre. People enjoy when the horror films are shook up, certainly in a world where you get films like the Blumhouse films, which tend to be a little bit naff, to say the least.
Yeah, just moving on to number 4 now, John. It's Ready Player One. In its 3rd week here in the UK, it's earned another 1.2 million over the weekend, totalling 14.5 million overall.
Yes, we've talked about this film till we're blue in the face, Stephen. It was a very enjoyable film, as I says earlier on. It's grossed nearly $500 million worldwide. Turn it up. And it's, don't know what more to say about it. And love that shining bit in the middle. That was my favourite part in the whole film. All the little Easter eggs and tidbits. Wasn't the best film for character development. The story was it was just okay, but yeah, I'm glad to see it's crossed where it's crossed. Yeah,
as you said, John, the shining moment, pardon the pun, but that sequence was the standout for me as well. Phenomenal. The way they recreated those sets was absolutely eerie. But it's certainly one of those films I'm going to add to my Blu-ray collection. And just moving on to number 5 this week, it's in its 1st week here in the box office. It's just earned just under £1 million, and it's Truth or Dare.
Yes, and as I mentioned earlier, it's a Blumhouse film, and it's meant to be absolutely chronic. It's meant to be terrible. They're doing what they always do, they release 2-3 good films, and then they release an absolute abomination of a film. It's got 4.4 out of 10 on IMDb, 15% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. This is meant to be absolutely terrible. But you know what they do? They take these films, they fling a tiny little budget at it, make their money back, and then they carry on and do maybe another couple of good films, and then they go and do another crap film. This is what Blumhouse do. I'll not be going to see it, Stephen, but it's earned its money probably already.
Yeah, the concept of this film reminds me of 2012's Would You Rather, which has got a slightly higher rating. Basically, it's just one of these ones, you know, it's a game of survival, really, very sadistic, but certainly wouldn't be rushing out to the theatre to see it.
No, neither will I, Stephen. And then moving on, it's my favourite film in the whole wide world to discuss in the box office chat. It's The Greatest Showman. Still in there at number 7. It's grossed 616,000 for the weekend, taking its total gross to nearly £43 million. It's still in 397 theatres, and it's been out 16 weeks. 16 weeks, and it's been in the top 10 all of those 16 weeks. Remarkable achievement. I actually seen something the other day that Hugh Jackman snuck into a sing-along version of a screening of a film or something like that. I kind of had a little chuckle at that. I wonder if he joined in.
Yeah, 4 months, long time. You know, I think in week 1, I think we probably should have done a little cut and paste job with when we're talking about this this particular film. It certainly would have saved a lot of time, but it's phenomenal. 4 months for a musical to be in the top 10 here in the UK is absolutely phenomenal.
Interestingly, it's just took the number 1 spot for, I think, albums in the UK chart. It's regained that. It lost it about 3 weeks ago, and that's it, got it back again. So it's turning it up in the charts and in the box office, Stephen. It's a remarkable achievement.
I think that's probably why it's lasted this long in the top 10, John. I think the soundtrack itself has been very successful, and it's certainly, if you are familiar with the music, you're certainly going to be intrigued to see the film, and vice versa. You know, if you've seen the film and enjoy the music, you're certainly going to go out and download the album or purchase the album. But just moving on now to number 7 this week, it's Love, Simon.
Yeah, Stephen, we discussed this last week. Obviously, it's a kind of a coming out film from Fox. It's grossed 615,000 for the weekend. Total gross is now 2.7 million. I've not seen the film, Stephen. I don't think I'm going to with the competition it's out. I'm finding myself struggling to get along to see films that I really want to see. But by all accounts, it's a decent enough film, and it's doing okay, yeah?
Yeah, in its second week, John. It's certainly holding its own for that type of genre. Quite impressive. I think it's one of those films I think I might get round to seeing. I don't think I'm certainly not at the top of my list when I do go to the cinema. But just moving on now to number 8 this week, it's Isle of Dogs in its third week, and it's grossed another 500,000 over the weekend, and overall 5 million.
Yes, I need to hurry up and go and see this film, Stephen. I meant to go and see this film on Sunday there. It never worked out, sadly, but I will get around to seeing this film. It's a very interesting concept. I love stop motion. I'm delighted to see it's doing the business it's doing. £5 million for a film of this nature is just outstanding, especially only 3 weeks in.
It certainly is, John. And just moving on to number 9, it's Marvel's Black Panther. It's earned another 500,000 over the weekend, grossing £48.5 million in its 9th week.
Yeah, Stephen, it's hanging in there, and I think it's now going to stay in the top 10, hopefully anyway, for the release of Avengers Infinity War, which would be remarkable. You have 2 separate Marvel films in the top 10 at the same time. That'd be a great achievement. Brilliant film, as we said before. Really enjoyed it. Loved the Wakanda setting. I loved the performances from Michael B. Jordan, Chadwick Boseman, a whole host of people. Really had the circus. Martin Freeman, Lupita Nyong'o. The list is endless, really. Brilliant film. Thoroughly enjoyed it. It's grossed nearly £50 million. Remarkable success all over the world. What more can you say? We're moving on to the final film in the box office chart. That's what we're going to say, Stephen, and it's Duck Duck Goose, still in there. It's grossed 350,000 for the weekend, and its total gross is 3.2 million. That's doing very well as well.
It certainly is, John. I think I predicted this wouldn't be in the top 10 this week.
It shouldn't be, Stephen.
It's it's got a very average rating, but it seems to be hanging in there. It's got an impressive cast. As I said, very similar to the release of Peter Rabbit. It was just one of those films that was released at the right time over here in the UK when the Easter holidays kicked in. That's probably why it's hanging in the top 10. Mm-hmm. It's certainly not one of the ones. I don't think there was a lot of marketing for this film in its initial release, which I was very surprised about. But it seems to be doing the rounds. I think we've here in Glasgow, we've still got 18 theatres showing it, so it's hanging in there.
Yeah, I went to see Blockers this week, Stephen, and I was kind of trying to push that up and keep that in, but sadly, Duck Duck Goose pushed it out. I couldn't help. Blockers. What a shame. Very good film, incidentally. But moving on, that is us now reached the end of the box office chat for this week's episode of the Movie Burner podcast, and indeed the end of episode 28 of the Movie Burner podcast as well. We'd like to thank you for listening to us talking away once again, and we'll see you again next week. Remember guys, if you're enjoying the content we're putting out, then do subscribe to us on YouTube at Movie Burner Entertainment and on iTunes and Google Play at the Movie Burner Podcast, whilst also giving us a little follow on Facebook and Twitter at Movie Burners. You can also catch up with all the latest reviews we're putting out on the Movie Burner blog at movieburnerintertainment.org. Until the next time, goodbye.